Buckeye Cyclone or anything around a sports fan for basketball, really. And no matter what you're looking forward to, obviously, you have the high school girls state hoops this week, and then the following week will be the boys. Well, the Valley Tigers, both sides are still in it. The girls qualified for state. That's very exciting. We called that one on Tuesday night. But the boys have a big task tonight out in Ankeny against the Ankeny Hawks. They have fallen to them twice this year. One of those games came within, I believe, 6 points. So this game could be interesting. They actually led that game at Ankeny. So this will be an exciting one. A lot of students heading out to that one. And I think Valley, they might have a shot.
Yeah, I think that's not a crazy take at all. I mean, the Tigers have started to heat up a lot in these last couple of weeks. I mean, they've been keeping games really, really close. They beat Cedar Rapids Washington 5 games ago. They kept it really close to Council Bluffs Abe Lincoln, who eventually beat them. They kept it really close with Waukee throughout the entirety of the game. They did lose that one. They kept it insanely close in the first half to Waukee Northwest. They even had the lead at halftime, and then they ultimately fell by a large margin, and then they picked up a win at Iowa City West. I think the Tigers are treading in a very, very strong direction, and they have a lot of key guys that they've been leaning on. Jaden Attaway, Keen Jorgensen, even Eddie Heibel's in that paint position. He's really stepped up to be their big for the year with Trevin Nearat graduating. Even though he doesn't have the same height, he has a bit more of a stockier build, and they have been utilizing that a lot more underneath the basket to pick up rebounds. Keen Jorgensen, Jaden Attaway, both juniors. So maybe they don't get things done the way they want to this year, but next year they have a very strong build. They both will have key varsity starting minutes to go and use next year on the side of Ankeny. One of the players you got to watch out for, senior Amario Aguirre. Awful with names, but Amario Aguirre, the Aguirre brothers, Aguirre, he is one of the better players in the whole conference in the state of Iowa. 18.2 points per game. He is lethal behind the arc. Don't put him at the free throw line because he does not miss often. Alongside junior Jasani Campbell, who's averaging just under 16 points a game. Ankeny Hawks have shooters, and that's what Valley's got to look at. They have to just guard them and not get crumpled. You can't get in your own head. You can't slow down.
Yeah, and it does feel like this Valley team, they have a chance to compete in this game. They've really hung with some teams, and they hung with this Ankeny team very early in the year, first game of the year. Obviously, that's not that great of an example because it's the first game of the year, and both teams, especially the Tigers, have changed so much in just how they're approaching their games. But this is definitely a game that they can win, and you look into it, and those guys that you mentioned are there for sure. But there's not really that many guys that really jump off the page other than them. So I think that if the Tigers can just let them, obviously they're gonna get what they're gonna get, and you're gonna have to just kind of deal with that. But if you can really respond well and just keep up with them, then you have a really good chance in this game because the Tigers have had a little bit more late game experience, and now they've been able to show that they're actually able to win those games.
Yeah, and you got to have some great confidence. You keep your season alive against City West with so many doubters across the state seeing your record as a 1-19 team, and you're able to extend it till Friday, and you have a great chance and an opportunity to keep it going. And you're most likely going to play Northwest next week. But if they approach this game correctly, they stay within it. You never know what could really happen with this team because we've seen, Cole and I, that Waukee game, that team was very special, and it seemed a whole different approach until things kind of got out of hand. But they have to face the task and move forward and try to get it done. Yeah. But we're going to see how that's going to take place.
Yeah, and if they do approach this game like that Waukee game, I do think they can and probably will win this game if they play like that because they just played with so much fire and so much energy that Waukee, it was hard for them to keep up, even though Waukee is so much more talented than the Tigers. The Tigers were just able to really out-tough them, and that's what they have to do in this game, and they've really figured out that that's what they've done, and this team feels like they've really bought in lately.
Yeah, it does. That game is starting tonight, 7 o'clock. It's at Ankeny, but it will be streamed by CISN, I believe, correct? Yep. It will be streaming on YouTube. We will not have that game because it's not here at Valley, but a great one, especially for our Valley fan listeners to tune in, cheer on the boys, and hopefully they can pick up a huge win on the road against the Hawks. Moving on to the girls' side of things. If you didn't listen, we had the girls' sub-state final game against Iowa City High right here on 88.7, and man, did they show out. They played spectacular, and Valley moves on to the state tournament at Casey Center. They did get an unfortunate draw, some would say. They get the 7 seed taking on Dowling Catholic in the opening round. They have met Dowling twice already this season, and they have fallen to both of them by heavy margins in both of those affairs.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to see, and I know I have a lot of bias towards this Valley team, but I understand with the records, and it's about the schedule and it happens. But I just don't agree with some of the committee the choices. I think that the selection should be totally different. You're giving Cedar Rapids, Washington, a 4 seed when they lost to Northwest, Valley, and Waukee. Waukee girls not even a team that's making it. I think it has to come down to strength of schedule. We've seen that in other things, but it's not applied, and it's unfortunate for Valley girls because they're going to have to probably play the best team, obviously, other than Johnston, and that's just a really tough break for them.
Yeah, but I do think that the draw really didn't make much of a difference because it did feel like, even the most optimistic were probably thinking they would probably maybe be a 5, and then you win that game and you're immediately playing Johnston, assuming they beat Ankeny Centennial, which I 100% expect them to in that first round. But now they're playing Dowling, or if they would get a 6 seed, then they would have been playing Waukee Northwest. So that's just how hard this bracket is, and it's obviously going to be a very tall task against Dowling. But for the Tigers, they really have shown that they've started to heat up a little bit from behind the arc, especially players like Tylee White and that are just such facilitators and open up the floor so much. That'll really help this offense because in like the Dowling games, when they've played in previous games, it's really just gotten stagnant and the offense really hasn't gotten anything. So it's going to be really interesting to see how well that offense plays because it does feel like they're starting to turn a corner a little bit.
Yeah, and I think another thing for Valley is their defense has also really stepped up. They're not letting teams take advantage of them too much. And, I mean, we saw in the Southeast Bowl game, we saw in the Iowa City High game, they just really stayed strong. They trusted themselves and they trusted each other just to stay around their blocks. They were playing a very good defense, strong man defense against Iowa City High, who was kind of, by the end of it, just not really drawing up too many plays, and they were just kind of, let's see if we can get an open shot. And Valley stuck to that. They didn't let the hysteria that Iowa City High was falling to hurt them in any way. And I think that's one of the things that we saw Valley do was when other teams play a little unconventional, Valley had no response. And the Tigers are starting to show we can actually do that. And then they started to get tripped up on the offensive side against the 3-2 defense that Iowa City High showed to them. And they just kind of slowed down a little bit, and they found ways to get out of a tricky defense. And I think that's what will really help Valley is during the regular season, they were just getting stumped. They would go cold, and they couldn't get out of the funk. We saw the same thing on the boys' side for Valley. But the girls have really started to show that they actually can build, they can grow. They show that in the sub-states, and I think in this first round of the state tournament, if they can just stick to what they look like in the sub-state final game and the sub-state semifinal game, I really think they have a shot to at least make it difficult for Dowling to get to the second round.
Yeah, they have to they have to really erase and not think about what happened in that last game because it kind of fell apart before the game even started. And, you're playing a team that has so much talent, obviously with the Moeller sisters for Dowling, but you got to realize you want to be hungry. This is your crosstown rival. Don't let them just walk all over you. You haven't beaten a Dowling Catholic team since 2023 of November. So none of these girls have really experienced that game, other than maybe Carrie Rose or Avery Moon. But you really just got to put it all behind you and leave it all on the court, play with a physical mentality, and the result will show it. So it's going to come down to that.
Yeah, I do think in this game, this is probably going to be a little bit lower scoring. I don't expect Dowling to put up 79 like they did in their last matchup where Dowling won by a lot, 79-41. And I think that in these kinds of playoff games, if the game stays close, that's where anything can happen. And if they are able to keep this game lower scoring, like you guys mentioned, if the defense has really started to step up. If they're able to keep this one close, I do think that they can win. It's just Dowling is just such a talented team. It's going to be a very tall task.
We are 1.5 days away till March, so in the spirit of March Madness and bracketology, we have the bracket right now for girls state tournament. So I'm gonna read off them, and then I'm gonna get everybody's predictions all the way through. So in the first round, the 1 seed Johnson taking on the 8 seed Ankeny Centennial, the 4 seed Cedar Rapids Washington taking on the 5 seed Ankeny, the 2 seed Dowling taking on the 7 seed Valley, and the 3 seed Waukee Northwest taking on Iowa City West. We'll go in chronological order. So in the way that the bracket, so it's 1-8, 4-5, 2-7, 3-6. So in the 1-8 Johnson Ankeny, gentlemen.
Yeah, you gotta go Ankeny or Centennial. Yeah, able to move on, but
don't even really need to go into this. This is a very easy pick for me.
Yep, Johnson all around in that 4v5 matchup. This one is where it gets a little tricky, but Cedar Rapids Washington in the 4 spot, regular Ankeny in the 5 spot. I'll give my prediction first. I have the Hawks in this one. CIML bias, yes it may be, but we saw Cedar Rapids Washington. They haven't fared well against CIML opponents all that much. And so I have to give the edge to the Ankeny Hawks.
I agree here. Going with the Hawks, Cedar Rapids, Washington hasn't beaten a CIML team.
I agree with you too. And I think that like you said, Johnny, Cedar Rapids, Washington does feel like they were overseeded. And Ankeny just feels like a better team. Obviously, the record for Ankeny is not as great, but it's still a really, really solid record. And with a much harder strength of schedule, give me the Hawks in this one.
The next one, this is where we will see the bias from all of us. Dowling versus Valley, the 2 seed versus the 7 seed. Johnny, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I love giving the bias towards our boys team because I've seen so much fight from them, but I don't know if I can just trust the girls based on the last 2 results. They're going to keep it really close. I think it can be like an 8-point game, but the Dowling Catholic Maroons are going to move on.
Yeah, I think that Dowling is just so talented, and they're really long too, and that really gave the Tigers struggles because they've really kind of had to play some small ball this year because they really don't have that physical paint presence. You've had players like Avery Moon or Tylee White that are a little bigger that can really facilitate, but they haven't really had that one post player that's just going to dominate. And I think the Tigers they really struggled with that in their last matchup. So I think this game will be a little bit lower scoring, maybe like a 70-60, but I think the Dowling's probably gonna handily win this game, just a workmanlike game, about a 10-point win for the Maroons.
It pains me so much to not go with my eventual alma mater in like 3 months, but I have to go Dowling in this one. They've just looked so strong, and like you mentioned, Johnny, the Moeller sisters are so good, and Valley just hasn't fared well. I also agree with you, Cole. I think in this season of where anything can happen, it's going to be close, but I think Dowling comes away with it. Another very similar record-wise is the 3v6 mashup, Waukee Northwest taking on Iowa City West.
Yeah, this one's going to be a really good game. Iowa City West, they have some interesting games on their schedule, some interesting losses, but they've beaten teams like Waukee, came pretty close to Johnston. I think it'll be a very physical game, but I think Northwest plays so well in those closer games. Give me the Wolves.
Yeah, Waukee Northwest. I think they're really going to lean on their defense in this one. For Iowa City West, their top scorer, Grace Fincham, has averaged 19 points a game, but then their next two top scorers only average 10. So I think if Waukee Northwest is able to shut her down or at least hold her to 10, 15 points, they could really run away with this game.
I agree with both of you. I think that Waukee Northwest is the stronger team. I was looking at it. I was like, do I want to be the upset guy like I usually am? But I can't. I like Iowa City West. They have some very quality wins and against some really strong opponents. But I have to go with Waukee Northwest in this one. They just have looked very, very good all year. Do we want to go past or?
Yeah, let's do it. Go to semifinals here.
We all have the same semifinal. We have Johnston versus Ankeny, and then in the other one, it's Dowling versus Waukee Northwest. Starting, who do you gentlemen have making the first team out of two to make it to this tournament final?
I mean, yeah, Ankeny and is a strong side, but if you look at those past games against Johnston, they really haven't, been able to compete as well. And I just think you got to go with the Dragons here. Ankeny will keep it tight, but give me Johnston.
Yeah, Johnston is just, it feels sometimes like they're just head and shoulders above the rest, and it doesn't feel like to me, other than Dowling or maybe Waukee Northwest, that really anybody in this bracket can potentially keep a game close. So I think Johnston is going to roll into the state championship.
I agree. I think although Ankeny is a very good team, Johnston has been unstoppable all year. Give me the Dragons in that one to make it to the state championship game. In the other semifinal, Dowling versus Waukee Northwest is our prediction. I have the Maroons in this one. It was close. They split decision in the regular season. Waukee Northwest got the better of the Maroons in the first one. Dowling got the win in the next meeting. I think Dowling's going to win again. They just have looked so strong in these last couple of games, and I really think they want a rematch against Johnston in the state tournament game.
Yeah, that game in the Den was great. Earlier in the year, Northwest was able to win by 3, but the Northwest has such a great home court advantage, and the Maroons were able to win that next game. And I think the Maroons are very hot after that loss, and I think they're gonna get it done against Northwest.
Though I do agree. I do think Dowling is going to win this game very tight. This is probably going to be, in my opinion, the best game of this entire bracket, and that's including the state championship game. And one thing to just watch out for. I did notice that Dowling needed an 18-6 fourth quarter to take down Waukee Northwest. So the 9-point game makes it look like it was a little bit more of a margin than it was, but this is going to be an incredible game. I just think that Dowling has more all-around talent, and I think they get this done.
And then, if I did not say it already, I had Dowling. So
this is a state championship right here.
State championship game. It's a rematch of last year. Johnston taking on Dowling is our prediction. Johnny, we'll let you start. Who do you got?
Yeah, I mean, nothing better than a rematch from the year before. And I'm feeling something that happened 2 years ago. Pleasant Valley was able to walk into an undefeated Johnston and take them down. I'm feeling that. I think Johnston feels the pressure. Dowling's hungry to win this game. They've kept it close the last two. Give me the Dowling Catholic Maroons to win the Class 5A state championship game.
I'm very, very torn on this game. I feel like Dowling is one of the only teams that really has given Johnston a game. Both of their games have been very close, with Johnston obviously taking those games, but Dowling has really stuck around, and Dowling has some D1 quality players, which Johnston just hasn't had to face up against that often other than in their games against Dowling. So I do think Dowling is going to keep this one very close, and this is really a decision right here. I think I'm actually going to go Dowling. I think I'm going to have to agree with you, Johnny. And this Dowling Catholic team is just so well rounded, and we saw it in that Valley game where Dowling was playing, where Johnson was playing Valley, but that Valley defense was able to, when they were able to lock down Jenica Lewis, that was kind of the recipe to stop Johnson. So it's going to be a very tall task, but there's something
brewing, isn't it?
Something brewing. There's a little stench about this game.
You're making me curb Hurd Street with this one, making me save the graphic, because looking at this, I was just like, both of those games that they had, it was a 3-point, then a 6-point, 43-46, 43-49. Both of the times Johnson got the better of them, but I'm looking last year, and also we mentioned Dowling has looked hot as of late. I know Johnson, that 24-0, they've been hot all year, but Dowling has been looking so good. So good. And I mean, from last year, I feel like this is a case they need to get back, and I feel like I can smell what y'all are smelling. I feel that there's something in the air. I'm going the Dowling Catholic Maroons to pick off the undefeated Johnson Dragons in the state championship.
Hey, and now you can now see some of my frustration for Valley facing them off first, because that was the reason I was like, I think it's Dowling's year.
I think it's Dowling's year, and who knows? We'll all see. For all we know, Centennial
Valley could beat Dowling. All we know,
Dowling or Valley could shock the world. Who knows? Man. We will all find out. First games tip off on Monday, the 2nd March.
It's going to be a fun one.
10 o'clock is the first matchup. Johnson will have the first matchup of the day. Valley will start at 1:30, assuming that there's no delays or anything.
Well, now that we picked Dowling, that means that they're either going to get blown out against Waukee Northwest, or Johnson's just going to absolutely handle them, because that's just how it works.
Who knows? We'll find.
Hey, we were right about the Seahawks, though. So
we were right.
That's true.
We'll find all that out. But now, a quick one. We got some college hoops. We're heating up. A lot of the teams now only have a couple games left on the season, and there were a lot of good games earlier this week. So, Johnny, want to start it off?
Yeah, I mean this week has kind of gone by fast. Basketball-wise, a lot of games. Not necessarily a huge amount of top 25 matchups, but there was a lot to cover. And I'm looking at last night, that Michigan State-Purdue game, and that one went down to the wire. The Spartans get a huge win. Carson Cooper with 15 points for the Spartans.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it's so big is you get a huge win over a conference opponent who is ranked higher than you. Michigan State came in at 13, Purdue at 8. And Michigan State picks up the upset. But the other thing is the fact that it is a conference win, and we are so late into the year. This might be some big implications on Big Ten tournament rankings and standings on where are these teams, because everybody at the start of the year expected Purdue to most likely be the 1 seed maybe of the whole country, but especially in the Big Ten. And now it's Michigan who holds that 1 spot and is arguably the best team in the country right now. So I really think the Big Ten rankers, they need to give a good hard look at Michigan State, because that Tom Izzo effect in March is starting 2 days early. And when Tom Izzo and the Spartans get heated in March, they're unstoppable. It's just something with Tom Izzo and the way he runs his program. Once you get into March, watch out for them. And I'm really liking the Spartans, and that just kind of cemented my feelings. Because I thought Purdue, even though they've had an up-and-down year, they can easily handle Michigan State at home. They started to look a little bit better as of late, staying in the top 10. But now, watch out. Woo!
Yeah, and there's just so much going on, a lot of upsets. We saw the St. Louis go down to Dayton earlier this week. There's a lot of craziness going on. But I want to look into the teams of Iowa, and including the Iowa Hawkeyes. They just played Wednesday night against a pretty solid Ohio State Buckeyes team, and they handled them well. And that's a big win. Even as a Hawkeye fan, I would say, just because you get your team to 20 wins and the schedule doesn't really get any easier. You play Penn State tomorrow, you expect to win that game.
You have to get that game.
Because you got to go to Michigan and Nebraska. Nebraska's going to want to get you really bad.
Yeah, and these games are absolutely essential. You have to probably go 2-1, and that's you. So basically, you have to go 1-1 in those last two games against Michigan and Nebraska. You kind of you have to get this Penn State game, because right now Iowa's just trying to get off of that 8-9 game, because that 8-9 game is one of the worst positions in the whole bracket, because in the second round you're almost guaranteed to go against that 1 seed, and you know they're going to be really, really good. So if they're gonna want any chance of making some sort of run, they have to get to a 7 seed, and right now they're right on the cusp of that. So if they're able to, I think the most likely outcome, if they're going to get that 7 seed, is beating Penn State and winning at Nebraska, because that Michigan game is going to be really tough. But they have to get one of those two Michigan or Nebraska games if they want to get that 7 seed, and I think they can.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It always seems like every year Iowa does make the tournament. It's always around that 8-9 seed, 7-10. We've seen them up to 5 a few years ago, but losing to Richmond in the first round. But they got to get past that second round hump, and new coach, new feelings. Maybe this is the year that they do it. The Sweet 16 is never easy to get there, and there's obviously a team better in the state, and that is Iowa State. But we will see how they kind of pan out. Cole, what are you thinking towards March? How is Iowa State going to look?
Well, Iowa State, they've been all right. I think a lot of Iowa State fans would agree with me. Like that BYU game, that's a tough loss, but you can't really think that much about that. They had just lost Richie Saunders, and teams always have, it seems like, whether they lose a coach or lose a star player, feels like they always have those 1 or 2 bounce back games, and that's what BYU had. And then, BYU immediately turned around and just got obliterated by Central Florida. So that's really not a loss to put that much stock into, and it was just a good job for the Cyclones to be able to take down Utah. That's a game that you should win, and beat them by 16. They definitely weren't playing their A game. It was probably a B minus effort at best, but they were just able to get out of Salt Lake City with a win, and now they're in the key stretch of the year.
Yeah, and that key stretch is very important, because you have a game tomorrow, 3 o'clock, at home against Texas Tech. We know the Red Raiders are gunning for them, especially after last year's fiasco of a game. Iowa State ties it to 74 as this buzzer for the end of regulation sounds, and then just a bunch of craziness happened at the end of overtime. Iowa State picks up a win last year. Now, reverse the script. Iowa State's at home, trying to keep their perfect home record for the year. It's senior night. Both teams, it's going to be a top 25 matchup. Iowa State now the 4 seed. If you pick up a win, you really start to make your case even stronger for that 1 seed position. If you lose, then you got to start looking, how do we make sure to keep the 2 seed? So this has a lot of implications on rankings, and just overall, Iowa State, they have looked strong. Texas Tech has been a little up and down. Both come in 11-4 in the Big 12. Texas Tech, some of their losses have come to inferior opponents at home, I should say. So it's going to be one to look out for, a very good matchup. If you're Iowa State, you just got to start out hot. We've been saying it all year. If you're Milan Momcilovic, you got to get out of your own head. That's something they've been telling him since he was a freshman. Just get out of your own head, shoot your basketball, and the Cyclones can do very well. Joshua Jefferson, he has to stay just as consistent as he was at the start of the year. And the other thing, you have to make your free throws. The worst free throw shooting team in the conference one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. And we saw that against BYU when they really needed a spark to get back into the game. They couldn't hit their free throws. We even saw against Utah, they were struggling to just amplify their lead because they couldn't hit free throws. So especially in this final 3-game stretch, if Texas Tech, Arizona, those 2 games, if you can't make free throws, just chalk it up as a loss now. So you got to really just stay very, very strong.
Yeah, you really do have to really – the free throws are really what it's going to come down to, especially in that Arizona game, because that could be a game where you might be struggling to score some points at times, and you might go on a little drought, and free throws are the only way out of it. And for Iowa State, right now is the season of just always watching the seed lines, and right now it does feel like Connecticut is in the driver's seat for that last 1 seed. It feels like right now it's between them and Iowa State, and with UConn just demolishing St. John's 72-40, which is not a score you see very often. That really has put them in the driver's seat, and Iowa State is probably going to have to either beat Arizona or win the Big 12 championship with just to get that 1 seed, that last 1 seed, and you really have to get that last 1 seed because it'll be really tough. It'll be a really tough matchup if you get that first 2 seed because you'll probably be up against Michigan in the Midwest. So you really do not want that because Michigan, I think they're the best team in the country right now, and you could probably make an argument for Duke or Michigan, maybe Arizona, but Iowa State, they have to try to get up to that. If they don't get to that last 1 seed, it's not a big deal, but because anything can happen in March, obviously, but it will make their path to the Final Four and beyond a lot easier.
Yeah, and it felt like, this slate of games we talked about pretty much all semester. It felt so long, but it's already here. We're just approaching March Madness, and the Cyclones have Texas Tech, which is not going to be an easy task, and then Arizona on Monday. It's a quick turnaround, but hoping for all the best for the Cyclones. But let's take a look at a team just northwest of Ames, Cedar Falls, the UNI Panthers. We've talked about them a lot this year, and unfortunately they're on a bit of a toll right now, losing by 2 in both of their last 2 games. They drop in the Missouri Valley Conference, and things are not looking what you want, especially with the seeding being so close.
Yeah, and this Northern Iowa team, last time we talked about them, we were talking about how they had just rattled off quite a few wins. They had won 5 out of their last 6, with their only loss being a 5-point loss to Belmont, who's in all likelihood going to be that tournament representative out of the Missouri Valley. And now 2 tough losses to Southern Illinois, who is similar to Northern Iowa, but that's a game that they should have won, especially at home, and then a loss to Illinois State, who's a really solid team. So you just have to take care of Drake, who
they don't really have any reason to win, really, just based off their standing.
Yeah, Northern Iowa is a much better team than Drake right now. Drake's really been sliding, and you have to win that game if you want to have a chance at making a run.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate because you're most likely going to be a 7 in the Arch Madness Conference, and that means you got to play Murray State right away. Actually, you have to play Indiana State, I believe, unless they play a play-in, because Missouri State is not in the conference anymore. So I'm not exactly sure how that will work, but it seems like they would play Murray State, and that's a 7 versus 2, and that's not going to be an easy game. But UNI has proved that they can handle them. They've beaten them this year, so who really knows when it goes down to St. Louis, because it's always crazy.
But the most important thing is definitely avoiding Belmont, because Belmont's really separated themselves as the best team in this conference, and losing to Southern Illinois. Northern Iowa's 10-9 in conference, and Southern Illinois is 9-10. So as long as they take down Drake, they'll be facing off against Murray State or Bradley or UIC. There's a 3-way tie for second right now in the conference, but that would just be huge to avoid Belmont for as long as possible, and just hope that they get upset by somebody else.
Yeah, a lot of big matchups around the state.
Yeah, I was just going to add on that the Bulldogs, we kind of talked about them, but it's been a really unfortunate year for them. Losing 8 in a row is just really hard to see, especially as, guys from the Des Moines area. We've seen them at their highs, and now we're kind of seeing them at their low. And they seemed like they were going on a pretty good run mid-year, and then it's just all fallen after that Bradley game.
That it has a lot of big games upcoming around the state and around the country. Some games to watch out for on Saturday. The Duke Blue Devils are at home against the 11 seed, the Virginia Cavaliers. That is a big game, especially in the ACC. If Virginia can somehow pull off the upset, they could be gunning for a very high spot. Another big game in the Big 12, 3 o'clock, Arizona, Kansas. The Jayhawks trying to walk in to McHale Memorial Center and shock the Cougars, because if they can do that, one, they're putting their foot in the door for saying, hey, maybe we have a spot for that 1 spot. Most likely not, but especially that 2 spot will be up for grabs if Kansas can beat Arizona. We mentioned the Iowa State-Texas Tech game. Alabama, Tennessee, a big game in the SEC. Just for another big game is Florida, Arkansas. And then the big one, the nightcap, 9:30, Gonzaga on the road against St. Mary's. If St. Mary's wants to get into March Madness, they need a big win against the Zags in that one. A bunch of big games. Is there really anything on Sunday?
Well, I think that
No.
it's really on Saturday.
Saturday, yeah, Super Saturday.
Yeah, and I think the 2 games that me personally I'm really looking forward to that are kind of outside of the Big 12 and Big 10 are this Arkansas Florida game and this Gonzaga St. Mary's game that you mentioned, Ian, and especially this Arkansas Florida game, because if Arkansas is able to take down Florida, that'll pretty much take Florida out of that 1 seed contention. And as an Iowa State fan, I'm just trying to think of all the teams that are potentially going to have a chance at that last 1 seed, and Florida has been really hot. So they've kind of made their name known and given themselves a chance to do something on that seed line. And a loss to Arkansas would pretty much take them out of that, giving them 7 losses. And then that Gonzaga game with going against St. Mary's. St. Mary's is in a really good spot to get into the tournament, probably around a 7 or an 8, kind of like Iowa. But a win against Gonzaga would just absolutely do wonders, and it would put them in a really good spot down the stretch.
And just quickly looking at the games tonight, there's 2 big ones, especially for Iowa State fans. Michigan on the road against Illinois, the 10 seed Illinois, fighting Illini. They would like to pick up a huge win against Michigan, and Iowa State fans, if Michigan loses, it creates a lot of questions on that 1 seed line. Does Michigan, have they locked their spot as a 1 seed? If they did, are they going to be in the Midwest? And does that kind of free up some space if you're Iowa State not having to worry about that 1 seed anymore? It's a bunch of questions. And then the other one, a fan favorite here, the Miami of Ohio Redhawks. They have a big game just to be one of the first teams ever to finish out the regular season undefeated. Who cares who you play if you can go a whole season without taking a loss? That's some big news.
But still an 11 seed.
Still an
predicted.
11 seed.
Yeah.
On the road tonight against Western Michigan. That's going to be a good game. They beat them once already. Of course they have, because it's a conference matchup, but they beat them once. That was at home, and it was kind of close in that affair. It was an 87-76 9-point win at their home turf. So what will it be like on the road at Western Michigan? And then they finish out on Tuesday, and next Friday, Toledo, and then at their crosstown rivals at Ohio. So a lot to look out for, a lot to be excited for. Some big matchups tonight. The Valley Tigers taking on the Ankeny Hawks, 7 o'clock. Tune into CISN or pop out to Ankeny to cheer on the boys to see if they can force a sub-state final matchup against the winner of Indianola versus Waukee. Against Iowa City Liberty. We thought Indianola against Iowa City Liberty or Waukee Northwest. Johnny Reynolds is the only one that predicted that one. Me and Cole were some sore losers. But that is all we have time for. Thank you all for listening to another rendition of Fourth Quarter Friday. I'm Ian Nelson alongside Johnny Reynolds and Cole Sunderman. Have a great weekend. Watch out for some hoops and keep on tuning in to 88.7 KWDM, The Point.
You're listening to 88.7 KWDM West Des Moines.